Hello and welcome to Marketing in Times of Recovery, the Built Environment Marketing Podcast. And I'm your host, Io Abbas from Abbas Marketing. I know it can be overwhelming to know where to start when it comes to getting your marketing done. So this special mini-series is going to look at some of the alternatives, different ways that you can get your marketing done, basically. And here we are with part one, which looks at group and online programs. My guests for this episode are Nikita Morell and Sara Kolata. We take a close look at what group and online programs are, how they work, and how you can benefit as a practice. Anyway, that's enough of an intro from me, so let's head over to hear the conversation with Sara and Nikita. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to Marketing in Times of Recovery. Today we've got not one, but two special guests. So we've got Nikita and Sara. Nikita, do you want to introduce yourself, who you are and what you do?
Sure. So thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. So my name is Nikita Morell and I'm a copywriter and marketing strategist for architects. So yes, I specialize especially in website copy, just helping architects, get the right words on their website so they can get a steady stream of ridiculously good projects.
Fantastic. And Sara, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Sara Kolata and I'm an architect and I also do business development for architects. And I'm specifically fascinated by the digital world, digital transformation. And so how you can use the internet to basically position yourself better online and do better sales and marketing for yourself as an architect.
Fantastic. And thank you both for coming on the show. So today we're going to be looking at online programs and group and communities to help get your marketing done. So for me, like I just said when we spoke earlier, I follow a lot of female founders on Instagram, and actually a lot of the collective and group programs is quite a common thing. So for me, with this series, really what I wanted to do was actually bring out some of the different ways that people can be marketing themselves, and actually for practices to consider, because it's not always that you have to have someone in-house or you have to be paying an agency. So I really wanted to, this episode to really showcase that. So Nikita, can you tell me a bit about SiteSmart and what you're doing with that program that you set up last year?
Yeah, sure. So I'll quickly give a recap as to why I started it. That was because, I guess originally I had one service and that was just offering, one-on-one copywriting to architects. And then about 2 years ago, I launched the Architects Workshop, which is just a lot of, toolkits to help architects write different parts of their website. And it was very much a DIY. So you just buy the toolkit and you work through it yourself. But what I found was that I needed something in the middle. A lot of architects were buying these toolkits and saying, well, hey, Nikita, I'm working on it, but I just feel like I need some extra support or someone to hold me accountable. I'm not in the position to afford your copywriting services right now. So what can we do? So that's kind of where the idea of SiteSmart was born. And what it is it's a 12-week kind of get it done website accelerator. So it's a small group accelerator. So at the moment, I'm just about to launch the next round, but it's limited to 12 people or 12 architects. And these are mainly solo practitioners or smaller firm architects. So across those 12 weeks, we every 2 weeks there's a new module that's dropped, and that could be writing your homepage tagline, your about page, everything. And then there's fortnightly group calls and that as well. So I can go on a bit more, but that's just the general gist of what SiteSmart is.
And so, Sara, what's your what you've been offering in terms of online and group space? I see that you do 7-day challenges and things like that. How does it work for you?
Yeah, so I actually have two programs as well. One of them, the first one I created, is the Architecture Masterclass online course creation for architects. And now the 7-day challenge is somehow a little bit related to what Nikita's doing. So Nikita's helping you create your website, and I'm questioning, how are you going to get your leads onto that website? Who's going to visit it? Because a website is much like a business card, and if you don't go around giving it away, question is, how are you going to get those visitors and that traffic on that website? And so the 7-day challenge actually is helping you get leads, and we go into a little bit of digital marketing. We do lead pages and advertising, the lead magnet, but we also build you a CRM system that can collect those leads and sort of introduce to basics of digital marketing and email marketing. So how to follow up with these leads. So it's sort of like it's wrapping up the presence of the website, which is somehow I think more of like maybe Nikita's expertise. And what I do is like, how do you drive the traffic through it? And how do you then capture those leads and follow up with them to actually nourish a relationship with your potential clients? And that's what the 7-day challenge is.
That's brilliant. I mean, I always kind of say that people always think like a website ends once you launch it, but to me, it really doesn't. It's kind of like, how are you actually going to feed this thing? How are you going to keep it alive? What are you going to do to keep people coming to it and keep it going and keep it, I guess, like changing and ever changing? Because that's how you're going to get up the rankings. That's what you're going to do. It needs to be a live element. So completely, and it's true. I love the way that actually Nikita's on a kind of design, getting it built and the copy and the words, and then how do you actually feed it and keep it going, which I think is it's all intertwined, but there's two sides to that when it comes to online marketing. So I guess in terms of what are the kind of some of the benefits to practices who are kind of going more down this kind of group program kind of online route, can I kick off with you, Nikita? What do you think the benefits are for them?
Yeah, sure. I think what I found actually, funny story, in the beginning, I didn't put a Slack group as part of the program because I thought, our architects are even going to have the time to get on and communicate with each other. But kind of week one into it, everyone started saying, well, Nikita, like, how do we communicate with each other? And I said, well, that's what the group calls are for. And they actually asked me for it. So I set that up, and it was one of the best parts of the course almost, because I guess what happens is you get a room full of really smart, like-minded architects that, they're all quite forward-thinking. They get marketing, they get ideal clients and all that kind of thing. They just bounced ideas around. And I guess, in all honesty, I'm not an architect. I just don't have what it takes. I wish I did. But I guess my strength lies in, copywriting and marketing. So it was actually really great to have ideas coming from architects who are, living and breathing it. And then I could, overlay my kind of copywriting and marketing experience on that. So it's definitely, just bouncing around ideas, getting through challenges. And I guess one thing I should have mentioned is part of the course is we work through all the material, but at that end of those 12 weeks, everyone submits what they've written to me for critique, so they can feel confident to put those words live on the website. So a lot of them got quite nervous, and they were saying, it feels like a design
And I was going to say, and Nikita's there going, right. It's like, they were like, we've seen you on LinkedIn.
Exactly.
It's going to off, man, and I'm just going to do a post about it.
And that leads me to my next point. So obviously having everyone in a group, there is, that collaboration element. But I think what really works from my kind of perspective is the accountability. Websites, marketing, these are things that drop off, and they're the last thing people want to do, right? Especially, pretty much everyone who was in the course were like, I was tweaking it for years and I've been meaning to do it. I just can't get it done. So
you don't make it go live. It's actually there. It's done. Oh, this is me. It's done. I just don't want to press the button.
So as I would say, tough love, people kind of dropped off. Obviously, I get it. Client projects come up, life gets, in the way, people get sick, whatever. But I was there, and that's why I do limit it to 12, because it means that I can kind of say, oh, hey, I've just noticed, what are you struggling with? And keep them going, keep that momentum going, so that they can actually walk away and say, yes, I did it. So,
I mean, what I find interesting about what you've just said is I remember some of your posts before you started Site Smart, and you weren't even sure that people would be able to collaborate in the same way, were you? You weren't sure. And I remember you doing those posts where you were like, do architects talk to each other? Well, they do.
I think I was like, architects suck at sharing. I think that was like the first And then it was,
we had like hundreds of comments, but yeah, it's interesting to see that you found they're like-minded people who are sharing and working together, because it's like, I find that some of my best collaborations are with fellow marketers like you guys. You know what I mean? It's like, actually, that's where, and actually it's a good source of leads for me if people are busy and stuff like that. So I think this whole collaboration thing, I really do think it's a really important part for most people nowadays, and we've just got to embrace it. So Sara, same for you. I mean, what do you think the benefits are of people who do things like your 7-day challenge and things like that? I mean, what do you think they get out of it?
I think that, just like Nikita mentioned, I was a little bit worried as well whether the program is not a little bit busy for architects, because if you think about it, architects, they've put so much energy to learn design and a lot of other aspects to deliver these projects. And then here I am teaching them a lot of new stuff, which is like, lead generation, digital marketing, business development, sales. And I think a lot of those concepts are new. But what I found, and of course, there's been mentioned as well, is that a lot of times people that join these courses are the ones that actually say, you know what, I know I've got to do the work. This isn't me hiring someone to do it. I know I have to do the work, and I have to somehow actually join that challenge and meet the end line of it, right? And so I think that people understand from the beginning that this is going to be how this program is delivered. And then I noticed that there was a lot of interaction happening between the other participants, to the point where people are actually developing friendships. The accountability aspect is extremely important. I've noticed that as well. It takes a load off my shoulders to maybe in one-on-one consulting, if some of my clients are not doing the work, I have to have that conversation being if you don't actually implement that, we can't really quite move forward. This isn't like we sitting down here in the session and having a conversation. It needs to be implemented in your business. So you have to put the time into it. But I find that, and yes, of course, there's people that will drop off the programs, but I think that a lot of people benefit from that sort of group dynamic. And another aspect which is really interesting is, because we're learning new things, the ability of the different minds and different creative businesses to come together, it gives you also the idea of diversity of how people can actually apply those elements. So you're bringing them into a structure of how marketing works, and you're giving them a blueprint, and then each of them applies it to their business differently. And so I'll find that some people will decide to do one-on-one consulting, other people will create the online courses, other people will actually be like, oh, I've learned about positioning, maybe I'm actually going to publish a book or go out and get more lectures and more public speaking gigs, create new collaborations so I can get myself out there. So everyone will somehow adapt it to their personality and their business. And so the different elements of it are implemented differently. And I think people see how that can flourish for you and see how there's a benefit in each of these strategies. And so I think that's really useful. That I couldn't probably do on my own. It's just that sort of thing that happens through that group dynamic, that spontaneous learning for everyone.
So do you think there are any drawbacks in kind of doing these types of group courses and online? I guess we already touched on it a bit in terms of life can get in the way, which I guess is, with COVID and everything else, we've all got to kind of deal with that. I mean, do you think there's any drawbacks of working in this? Is it not right for some people, Nikita?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think one thing I did find is sometimes, architects can be, like anyone, could be quite introverted and may not feel comfortable. For example, in my course, there's fortnightly group calls. So that's, their opportunity to come and pick my brain on anything and get live copy critiques and whatever. But I found a few of the architects kind of sit aside. They wouldn't be, they didn't feel as comfortable to kind of contribute to those sessions. But then I guess, that could be a drawback, but then I guess they've got Slack to communicate one-on-one with me. And then just this second round that I'm also introducing a bonus where they can have 2 one-on-one calls with me as well. So I guess, that could be a drawback in terms of, everyone behaves in group situations differently. So maybe if you don't feel as confident to raise your questions and ideas, that could be a drawback. But I mean, really,
No, but I guess you're giving people different choices, aren't you? So you've got the Slack group, you've got different ways of communicating, so you can pick out the ones that you want and engage where you feel comfortable, I guess. And do you see any drawbacks, Sara?
Yeah, I think, speaking from like a business perspective, one has to understand that those sort of group dynamics, they're designed specifically for people that perhaps are not ready or do not want to invest in one-on-one coaching. And so the way I kind of explained it is that when you come into like a mastermind or a group course, you pay a fixed price for the result and you just sort of sign up for that experience. Usually those are like products that are obviously cheaper because you have to do the work. That's the reason why. It's because I will present you with the structure, but you have to do the work. And if you just listen to the course and not do the work, you're not going to get the results that this course promises because you have to implement it. Now, I do also do one-on-one coaching, and I have a lot of clients that choose that because they know that we'll sit down together, approach your business bespokely. But of course, that comes with a price because I'm then, putting 100% of my attention to one client. And then there's also a possibility where I come in and do it all for you. So, we'll set you up with all these different systems to generate leads, to capture them, for your email marketing, give you templates, teach you how to manage it, or actually work directly with like your communications and marketing team to implement it. And then that's obviously, again, comes with a price because that's when I have to mobilize my team to deliver that product. So I find that, and I think that this really kind of relates to a type of person, a person perhaps that either wants to learn everything on their own because they're a sole practitioner or freelancer, and they do understand that like the full sort of responsibility of running the business and doing business development falls on their shoulders, and they want to get better. And that was certainly me when I was starting my business. That's also why, as an architect, I learned, about business and marketing because I wasn't too good at it, And then there's people that are so busy and they also have, probably a bigger turnover in the business and a bigger team. And they say, I actually want you to come in and ship that thing for us, and implement that. And so that's a different type of customer. And I think that it just gets defined by how people decide to proceed with it. Drawbacks, I think it's that people sometimes get emotional when buying. They understand they have a problem and they want to solve it. But sometimes I may be not ready to make the commitment to fully implement those programs. And it does take... It does take time. It requires you to be systematic with your work, and commit them to 10 weeks and sometimes longer, because once you implement that system, of course, then it becomes a part of your life. It's like as if you started an Instagram account, posted on it, a few times and then just dropped it, right? You do the work and then you have to continue. So, so I think it's certainly the drawback is that, perhaps people kind of, like Nikita said, fall out because of the responsibility, systematic nature of these courses. But I do think also that when it takes a little bit of determination to implement on your own, but then it makes you a better business person because you've learned those things for yourself. Even if you grow and you're outsourcing to someone else, you're able to overlook that and actually understand what's happening in your business. Whilst sometimes, we get clients who say, okay, well, we would like to, for you to come in and like do, say, for example, an advertising campaign or lead generation campaign and then install the CRM. And they think that just by paying for monthly for having the software, that's going to just generate leads on their own. It's like, no, this software is there to collect your leads. You have to continue doing your marketing campaigns. The fact
that we got software is something, though. I mean, come on.
And so that's sort of the misunderstanding. And I found a lot of times people are like, well, I paid for the software. It's not doing anything for me. It's like, I just subscribe to something. You need to learn how to use it now. It's a tool. And I think that it really takes that sort of, investment in learning about this. And it is definitely benefiting for people to learn on their own because it makes you a better marketer and a better salesperson. So you actually take better control of your business eventually.
Yeah, and I think it does, you're right, it does give you that understanding. I'm actually wondering, as an industry, are we ready for masterminds, challenges, online programs, all of that kind of community building thing? Because that's the language I hear on social media in other sectors, but the built environment, not so much. I'm wondering, are we ready for this yet, Nikita? Are you too ahead of your time?
No, I feel like we are. It's just it hasn't,
it hasn't hit the mainstream, right?
Well, this is why you're doing this podcast, right? Like we're trying to get the word out that, I think a lot of people, they just, go on, get a quote from a service provider, they can't afford it. So then they just go back to doing what they always do. And they think, well, I don't have a solution for me. So I hope through collaboration and more of these programs that it becomes, the norm. Like I feel like, Sara, there's lots of us that are doing, Dave Sharp, there's a lot of us that I think would really benefit from creating programs of what we're doing one-on-one to help and service more people.
Because the market's definitely there and we know it is. There's so many small practices, there's so many people actually that I guess in some ways it's like knowing the kind of basic foundations and how to set them up, isn't it? And that's kind of what it is. And once you know that, you, like you say, Sara, you can then feed yourself. You can keep it going. You can go, right, this is how I do. This is what I'm really into. This is what I'm good at. Each month I need to put out. And you just kind of get into that rhythm more. And I think you're absolutely right. But it's getting those foundations right in the first place, setting your website up correctly so that you get SEO traffic and, that you start building it in the right way. And I think that's probably where we could probably add most value. But you're right, it is harder on a one-on-one basis to afford us.
Yeah, I have to disagree with all of this, actually. From my experience, I find that the architecture industry is not quite ready to adapt into these particular methods of digital transformation. And I find that it takes a huge level of education around what I'm doing and the products that I provide to convince architects that this is a good idea. And I think that really shows to... speaks to the fact that we're a very traditional industry and we are very stuck in our old ways. And historically, with actually, for us, marketing was even illegal. We're not supposed to be doing marketing for our architecture practices. And I think that a lot of people are like, oh, why, what's really the benefit here in this? But the benefit is tremendous. And I think that it really solves the problems of many architects, which has to do with, getting the right clients and landing the right projects and actually moving your business in the direction where you want to go rather than just sort of being taken on the journey. And so it really is, it speaks to taking control. But I do find that with masterminds, digital coaching, actually even paying for consultancy services, a lot of architects they're not used to that. Not as much as, for example, when we buy into an app to take, fitness classes online, or when we attend conferences in, maybe business topics or other tech topics online. So it's still, I think, on the rise. And I wouldn't say that we're completely down here. I think that there is a lot of efforts that our community of people that provide those services have to put into educating the community. And I really hope that changes in the future, that people will realize more and more so, specifically in our industry, of course, that digital programs like these, conferences, the podcasts, they hold a lot of wisdom and they can educate you. And then that's a new way, to consume knowledge as well, but not just through listening to podcasts, but also actually participating in these courses.
Well, I love listening to podcasts. Go in, Nikita.
I completely agree with you, Sara. But I think also what I'm finding is that there's almost like two groups of architects, like two types of architects. Like there are these emerging younger kind of cohort, and I'm finding a lot of them they've grown up with branding and marketing, just kind of, I don't know, I find them a lot more open-minded to doing these things. And so hopefully, and then not only that, I also find that some of the older architects who may have been, around when marketing was illegal and all that, some of them, that younger generation is now taking over their practice, whether it's a family member or they've, sold their practice. So I find a lot of them are almost getting educated internally. I've got a few clients at the moment where, or even in the last cohort, where there was a son that was taking over the father's practice and he was like, Dad, you need to do this, So I do feel like, of course, we can educate, but I think, I don't know, I'm finding even just compared to like 2 or 3 years ago, there's definitely been, well, from my perspective, been more of a, and as you said, Sara, I hope it keeps rising. I think we're on the right trajectory. We just got to really...
Just got to speed it up a bit, right?
Yeah.
I think the last 2 years has helped us, though, because all those people who've sort of said, oh, no, we only do stuff in person. It's like, well, we can't. Well, this is it. I mean, Zoom was a new thing for the built environment, right, when it's been in tech for how many years. But, so I do think, definitely stuff has sped up and people have been forced online. But I think the next kind of, as people are kind of having to get on with it now and get out and about, I think that's the big challenge of actually people are going to go, oh, I don't want to do digital anymore. I don't like it. Or I think that's kind of where we're going. Okay, so have you had, can you share a success story from your Site Smart program then, Nikita, where it's worked for a practice, where you can say, this has really helped them and their business and what they're doing?
Yeah, so definitely one participant that comes to mind was Barry Reed, and he's awesome. Like, he's based in the UK, and he kind of came into Site Smart and he said, look, I know I need to focus down, and that's one module. Like, the first module of Site Smart, we just really uncover what your practice stands for. So I think we've spoken about this before, but I'm big on your practice standing for something. I don't know, it doesn't have to be a typology. It could be a design philosophy. It could be sustainable, whatever it is. But yeah, he came and he was just kind of like, look, my website is a mess. I'm so embarrassed by it. Like, whenever anyone asks me to see it, I just kind of mumble something or just like send them my Instagram page or something. So he was, and then pretty much throughout the course, he really put his mind to it. And he said, I'm going to really own whiskey distillery, the architecture of whiskey distilleries. And we came up.
So niche, but lovely.
It was awesome. Like, I was like, yes. And, we worked together, and the copy was all about, what was it? Bringing spirit into every building, like.
Yeah. So you can do all the puns. Oh, that's what you want.
Yeah, and even just, his process, like one of the modules in Site Smart, we talk about really how to communicate what you do, but how you do it, that how much value that adds. So we came up with almost like, it was like a cocktail, like a whiskey cocktail recipe, but really superimposed on that was the steps on how to get this building done. And it was like brilliant. He kind of walked away. I actually haven't checked his website whether he's actually put the copy on.
Still the old one, Nikita.
But yeah, like when it came time to review it, I just remember sitting there and I just felt like so like a proud mum. Like, I was like, yes, like this is, from where he started, where his copy on his website, there was no tone of voice, there was no personality. It was just, could have been anything. He just, really.
But you can kind of, it's funny because even you just saying that, like, from a marketing brain, I'm like, oh my God, you can imagine him doing, like, if he needs to send stuff out, direct mails, he can send out cocktails. And, you know what I mean? You kind of like, you could just see all this stuff. And like, people would just be like, oh, that's Barry. They'll know.
Yeah, and that was part of the calls, right? Like, all of the participants had their one thing, and it was so exactly like these kind of conversations were just, it was almost a form of entertainment. Like, I loved hopping on these calls because we just brainstorm things, and it was I think a definite success story. And there were lots like that, but Barry's definitely comes to mind.
Oh, that's like great. Like whiskey distilleries. I'm like, whoa. And Sara, have you got a kind of success story you can share? And I can't say it.
Sure. So I really love sort of the process of when I work with architects and when they have this aha moment of actually understanding how to implement all these different systems into creating perhaps a better communication strategy for themselves to communicate what they actually want to do and where they're going. And to that, I've been working with this architect who's over 60 in San Francisco, and he's has a huge portfolio of work actually throughout California, but mainly he's been doing a lot of residential and sort of smaller commercial. And he wanted still to very much sort of coming from that school of thought of like Stephen Hall, and had a dream of building that, big public building that I think most architects always dream about, like that one project that you really want to show your character, maybe not necessarily have to like stick to like box design, And so that's when he came to me, and the whole process of working with him was fascinating because obviously he was older date, so he had a lot of different like more traditional understanding around sales and marketing and building networks throughout San Francisco. But throughout a few first sessions, we just identified a better sort of receivers group, a better audience for him, and took action towards developing relationships. And I remember in one of the first sessions that we had together, we spoke about what would be his dream project. And he's like, I want to work with like a real visionary. I'd love to build something for Elon Musk. And I was like, whoa, okay. I didn't want to get things, but I was like, whoa, it's really aiming super high. Like, I mean, but anyway, we did actually start developing a relationship with more of the tech people from Silicon Valley. And next thing you know, it really didn't take long, like a month and a half, I guess. He's jumping on a call. He's like, I literally just got commissioned to do a warehouse building for Tesla. And it's like, how is this even possible? Like, how is this even possible? I don't even exactly know what we did, because it was just sort of back and forth, working.
But it's mixing in the right circles, right? It's actually mixing in those right circles. He's like, it's like, I want to be in that tech space, and this is what I want to be doing. And I think that's the thing, is like, who are those people that exist in that tech space? And that's your focus. If that's really what you
and also
want,
that focus, that sharpness of actually knowing what you're going for, but then also aligning your communication strategy to this, because we changed his like LinkedIn taglines, we changed his website communications, we had a completely different approach to like actually landing those conversations and like approaching people. And I think it's when you know who you want to talk to, who you want to attract, and actually kind of what you want to get out of it, the conversation is more laser sharp. And that's also not only through like live talking, live interactions, but also digitally. Like, it really affects your communication. I think that Nikita can speak volumes to that, because what you put online is literally almost like who you're shouting out for, it's like, hey, everyone look at me. No, it's like, hey, that one person I want to work with, and who that person is. And I think there's real power to that. And then also kind of really strategizing, making a plan as to how you're going to proceed with getting what you want. And so that was, it's really powerful. I couldn't believe that myself. So I'm very proud.
It's worth your fee then, Sara. It is really funny though, but you're absolutely right. But I think a lot of people worry about that, in terms of, if I niche too far or I'm too focused, and that means that everyone else is going to be repelled, but not necessarily. People are still attracted to you. It's just that you're being a lot more clear about who you are and what it is that you want to do. And I think that's a huge thing for everybody, isn't it? So absolutely, those are awesome stories. So on to my next question. So how do you get the most out of working kind of in the kind of group online programs? What do you need to do as a participant? What do you need to kind of be like or act like, Nikita?
Yeah, look, I think, it's not really about, I guess, being yourself. So but I think you need to act like anything. I'm not in smart. But I think the biggest thing probably is, and that's the hardest part probably, is the consistency and carving out that time just to be and keep up that momentum. A lot of architects, the first question they ask me is, how many hours am I going to have to spend on this per week? That scares them because they're busy, they're time poor. So I usually say it's 1 to 2 hours. And I've actually designed Site Smart. So with these toolkits, you can either kind of, do bit by bit every night, take 20 minutes here, or you can just smash through it in one chunk over your Sunday morning coffee. So I guess to get the most out of it, it really, as Sara said, you just have to put in the work, and you have to kind of go in with that mindset of, I'm going to have to do something, because that, especially in Site Smart, where I'm giving you critiques and that, it's good to have, even if it's just the bones of what you want to say. It allows me to give you that live critique all the way through. Some of the best participants, or I guess the ones that probably got the most benefit from Site Smart, were the ones that turned up to the group calls with just real draft copy. And they were like, Nikita, what do you think of this? And that's when we all kind of got on and we brainstormed taglines or opening lines, or call to actions, whatever it was. But I think just...
So they were prepared. They put in that. Exactly. I think that's the word, isn't it? It's kind of that thing of just, because you have to put in what you get out, really, don't you?
That's it. Doing their homework,
Anything you want to add to that, Sara? What?
So I think for me, it very much like Nikita said, I was aware that I'm creating a program or programs for very busy people. So the actual videos are short. They're about maximum 10, 20 minutes. And then there is sort of printout stuff that you need to fill in, like a workbook. And it doesn't take so much to do that. But I think it's very crucial to show up on calls and to sort of try to be regular, because I find that psychologically, even when you miss out on a few modules or perhaps a few calls, and you just feel like you're behind and you can't catch up, and it's just sort of that pressure of that making you feel like perhaps you're not updated on everything. So I think showing up for course is very important, and then taking maybe that one afternoon over the weekend to catch up, or just doing 20 minutes or up to an hour a day, depending on and how deep you want to go into it. But yeah, I would say sort of being regular is probably what can be the best measure of success towards the end, and the results will show for themselves, because you've got to put the work, and it will, by all means, it will bring you results.
So if you're someone who's thinking actually group online programs is kind of, what I'm looking for, I mean, what things should they be looking at before they sign up, or what should they be looking for from a provider? Any ideas, hints and tips, Nikita? Apart from obviously sign up to you.
Yeah. No, I say I'm like, look, I'm not for everyone. So, I think, in terms, it's just that kind of credibility, like just make sure that provider, maybe has been working on, just like architects have been working on their craft. They've also been working and investing in extending their knowledge so that they can be the best teacher. And I think that's one thing is again, like I'm not an architect, I'm also not a qualified teacher. So that's also been a learning curve for me. But I think passion is a big thing. I am so passionate, I guess even the motivation of why they've created the course. And the reason, as I said before, the reason I created this course was so I could help more architects who can't afford one-on-one services. So I think, that's probably what I would look for in a course kind of provider.
Anything from you, Sara, in terms of what people should look for in terms of going to the online route?
Yeah, I think it's really important to feel some kind of connection with the person that's creating the course, that's running it. And I think both me and Nikita and a lot of other people in this industry understand the importance of sort of presenting your story and talking about who you are. And I think that if you feel connected, you'll probably it's going to be a good place for you. So, you need to have that sort of level of respect, perhaps, to the creator. And then the other thing I would say is just check on testimonials, see what else these people are doing. And it's in the digital world, like sort of online, everything, you can find everything, about a person, their personal Instagram, their podcasts. And I would say in some respects, like we're doing a lot of things, I know that Nikita's also put up a conference. I'm also organizing events. All those things kind of feed into each other. So I think, just kind of check on the sort of overall image that person is creating. I also have a podcast, but for example, I'm not one of those very regular podcasters. You're not going to see my, my sort of episodes dropping every Thursday. I tried doing it. It's just not my personality.
It's hard. It really is hard to keep up that consistency.
Yeah, and
you kind of have to sit there and go, what happens when life gets busy? And yeah,
exactly. I'm aware that there might be people that look at this and they're like, oh, she's not regular or something. But I've been doing this for 2 years, maybe not every Thursday, but I'm still there. And some people will actually respect the fact that I'm taking my own time with this, because just don't want to be, overruled by just the podcast. And then I do other things as well, publications, organizing conferences, delivering my coaching, and, actively selling as well. So there's a lot of elements to our work. And I think that, if you resonate, that's a really good sign. That's a really good sign. If you look at a person and you say, actually, I like them, I like what they do, I like what they say, I like their story, that's a good sign. And, there's a lot of, in our community as well, a lot of coaches. And I can imagine, there is Jeff Eccles, he's got a certain personality. I can imagine that, a certain type of person would go to him. And then, there is this young girl here that, is completely different than Jeff Eccles. And I guess I'll attract a different customer too. So that's sort of what it's,
but to be honest, there's enough work for us all. And I really do think as a community, you actually look at it and it's like, how many architects are there? How many, let alone in the UK, even just when you look globally. And, so there certainly is. And I kind of think in some ways that's kind of like us all working together to raise the profile of what we do is probably more effective in a way. So definitely
absolutely
work for us all. So yes, and Jeff Eccles, I've not been on that. You've been on that, Context and Clarity, haven't you, Nikita? I haven't.
Yes, yeah.
It's on my wish list. I'll put that out there.
Hopefully Jeff listens to that.
I'll send him the recording. All right, Dan.
Yes.
I think I've spoken to him on Clubhouse. I think that's as far as I've got. Anyway, so I just want to say thank you both so much for your time and for coming on the show and talking about how you work in terms of group and online programs. It's been awesome. And where's the best place to find out more about you, Nikita?
Definitely my website. And if you join my email list, then you're in for a bit of a surprise too, because that's another good place to get to know me a little bit better. Enough said.
And you, Sara, where's the best place to find you and connect?
Yes, sarakolata.com, my website, is the best place, and also sign up for the newsletter.
Oh, and okay, I can also say I have now got a newsletter as well. So it's on thebestmarketing.com. Finally, I've done it. I've launched it. I hit the green button. So that'll be coming out once a month as well. So awesome. Thank you guys so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the latest episode of Marketing in Times of Recovery. And I'm your host, Io Abbas. If you want to find out more about the bi-weekly show, do check out the show notes, which will give you more information about who the guests are and all the things we've covered. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on an episode. Until next time, bye.